The hero's journey has been a popular way to design a story ever since George Lucas explained that he created the Star Wars trilogy based on Campbell's ideas. There is a lot of criticism online about the hero's journey, aka the monomyth. However, I think that most of these people are getting it wrong. Wrong! And here's why. The monomyth is not really a story structure. What it really is a series of archetypical symbols or symbolic scenes that show the transformation of a character through heroic action. Most people, when referring to the hero's journey, aren't even talking about the real thing. They're talking about the stripped down 12-stage version. But in this video, I'm going to argue that the real version is maybe less universal, but far more fascinating and far more useful to a writer looking for a new way to transform their story. We're going to deep dive into the real one. None of this 12-stage bullshit. We'll talk the real deal, all 17 stages. And you'll learn how you can use this plot to outline your own screenplay or novel. We'll use all kinds of movies to take this on, from The Matrix to Everything Everywhere All at Once, to The Silence of the Lambs, to Black Swan and The Wrestler. And at the end, we'll explore what it all means, and by doing so, get at what is the very meaning and purpose of story itself. The stages of the monomyth were never meant to be a formula. Each has its own purpose and meaning, and if you use them well, you might just tap into the thousands-of-year-old human instinct for story. Here are the 17 stages of the monomyth and how to use them. This is a visual representation of the monomyth with icons for all 17 stages. At the center is the hero. The hero is the first archetype we will encounter. Campbell based many of his ideas on the work of Carl Jung. Along with the 17 stages, we'll see several archetypes along the way, including shadows, mentors, threshold guardians, and most importantly, the hero. The hero is an archetype of the ego, that which sees themselves as separate from all others. This is why the trope of the chosen one exists. The hero is not the chosen one. They've chosen themselves as the center of the story. Part of the journey will be to bring the hero out of the ego and into oneness with all the rest of us. You'll notice story is often presented as a circle. The beginning and the end will meet. The idea is if we show the hero in their village and then take them through an extraordinary transformation, and then in the very last shot we put them back in the place where we began, we see how the character is transformed by the journey. Act 1 starts with departure. Act 1 is basically where the character makes a decision to take on this transforming journey. We start off in an ordinary world. It's said that all stories are fish out of water stories because in all stories we take a character from where they are comfortable and put them where they are uncomfortable. Act 2. The story is an agent of transformation of both the protagonist and the audience. So we start off in the village. It can be familiar or unusual to us, but for the hero, this is the world they are used to. Like in Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler. Mickey Rourke's character Randy the Ram's ordinary world is pretty strange to us. He's a pro wrestler. His everyday is smashing tables over his head, cutting himself with razor blades. His journey will be into a world that looks more like ours. He must have a normal life, have a relationship with his estranged daughter, go to work in a deli, and this is what will transform him. Evelyn, the heroine of Everything Everywhere All at Once, starts out in the laundromat she owns with her husband Wayman. Chris, the unfortunate protagonist of Get Out, starts off in his own apartment surrounded by his photographs. The hero starts off where they are comfortable, or so they think. Then they hear a call. Stage 1, the call to adventure. The call to adventure may come in the form of a herald. This might be a white rabbit that leads you off your normal path. It might come from a doctor. Randy the Ram has a heart attack. It's the doctor that tells him he must quit wrestling and begin a normal life. The world is off balance, and the hero must go on a life-altering journey to put the world back into balance. But at first, they refuse. Stage 2. Refusal of the call. The refusal of the call creates the stakes for the story, showing us that the hero is afraid or ill-suited for the task at hand. If it is easy for them, then why should we care? They may refuse outright or be pushed away by someone else, or be told they should be afraid by an ally or mentor. The refusal of the call is the way the storyteller shows the stakes of the story to the audience. Spider-Man, having gained incredible powers, does not use them for good right away. He uses them for personal gain, becoming a wrestler to make money. Neo, offered the journey by the call, is told to step on a ledge or he will be taken by the agents. He refuses. Luke, offered to go on an epic adventure to save the princess, refuses. Refuse all you want. The story will force the hero onto the journey anyway. The status quo will no longer do. The hero must take action and create change, but along the way they'll get some help. Stage 3, the Supernatural Aide. The Supernatural Aide stage, sometimes called the meeting with the mentor, is a moment where the hero receives a gift from the gods. The gifts may come in the form of advice or an item from the past. Magical items are symbolically those which have an attached history. This is the sword my father used to slay the dragon. The gift from the mentor shows a connection to the past and to the larger world around them. All characters are fragments of the hero. If the hero is the ego, then the mentor is the superego, the higher wisdom of the protagonist. The meeting with the mentor is a glimpse into a higher understanding of the truth. Part of the journey of the story is to bring the hero away from the id and toward the superego. They're going to need all the help they can get because they're about to cross the first threshold. Stage 4, crossing the first threshold.
This is it. This is what? If I take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home I've ever been. Come on, Sam.
In the stage called Crossing the First Threshold, the protagonist passes a barrier that leads them toward the new world and begins their journey of transformation. You can strengthen the stage by putting a barrier or threshold there. This symbol begins the ritual of transformation. They may even face the archetype of the Threshold Guardian, someone set there to challenge the hero along the way. But don't worry, those Threshold Guardians aren't there to kill you. That's why the Stormtroopers have such shit aim. They just exist to challenge the hero along the way on the thresholds of change. Stage 5, the Belly of the Whale. In the Belly of the Whale stage, the hero is submerged into darkness. It may be wet, it may be messy, and they will come close to death. In Pan's Labyrinth, Ophelia descends into a great tree poisoned by a magical toad. The Belly of the Whale is a dark temple the hero enters into to begin their transformation. Watch Clarice Starling enter the underworld to meet Hannibal Lecter for the first time. The hero will survive, but they will not come out clean. This is the character's first brush with death. The belly stage is a symbol of rebirth. The hero enters the womb of the story and will emerge later transformed by it. This first brush with death is proof the protagonist has what it takes to change. Now they are ready. Their initiation may begin. Act 2. Initiation. Act 2, the initiation, is the ritual transformation of the character, a hazing ritual in which the protagonist is put through the ringer in an attempt to force them into change. Story itself is an initiation ritual. Aristotle believes stories were designed to build catharsis, an emotional release or purging. He believed that when the audience participated in a drama, they would connect to the main character. They would essentially walk in their shoes for the length of the play. The audience will become bonded to the hero through this series of events until the story reaches its peak and the character reaches a rock-bottom moment. Then the character would undergo change, and this would create a catharsis within the hero and the audience. The story is a catharsis machine. That's where this channel gets its name. A catharsis machine built to create a transformation in the hero and the audience. Act 2 is the ritualistic hazing that causes the bond. This is how you build the machine. Stage 6, the Road of Trials. In the Road of Trials, the hero faces a series of challenges, usually 3. They will fail 1. The failure of one of the trials will lead the hero to realize they need help. In The Matrix, Neo faces 3 challenges. He fights Morpheus in a kung fu dojo, fails to leap across the building, and turns his head when confronted by the woman in red. Stage 7, the Meeting with the Goddess. The meeting with the goddess is modeled after the tradition of the hero receiving a gift or getting a visit from the mother goddess, like when Perseus is visited by his mom, Danae, and given gifts. Don't tell Zeus. And gender doesn't matter here. The goddess can be male or female or neither or both. It can be human or object or animal. The goddess is love, the overwhelming force of love that embraces you and helps you move forward. Now, it's important to note, the order of the stages does not matter. You can have the belly of the whale before or after the 3 trials, etc. But in this one case, it might matter. The hero must meet the goddess before they meet the father, because without the love of the goddess, the ego-shattering revelation of the father will send them screaming away from the adventure. More about that later. The goddess stage also suggests the incorporation of the feminine to the male persona. In Jungian psychology, part of the process of individuation is incorporating the opposites into your personality. All people have in them both the masculine and the feminine, the anima and the animus. Part of becoming whole is incorporating the feminine and masculine parts into your personality. These archetypes are made up of your relationship with your mother or father or other significant men and women in your life. You have to be right with your female or male parts in order to be whole. The meeting with the goddess confronts the hero with the sacred feminine, incorporating the positive energy of the mother into their personality, a crucial step toward making them whole. Stage 8, Woman as Temptress. Campbell called this stage Woman as Temptress, but it's best to remove gender from this one and just see it as what it is, temptation. The siren song of the temptress is not necessarily female. In Pan's Labyrinth, it's fruit. In Everything Everywhere All at Once, the temptation is a life outside her life at the laundromat. It might be any object of desire or anything that leads the hero off the path. The disobedient Ophelia mindlessly disregards a warning not to eat the pale man's buffet. In the temptation stage, the hero may meet with a shapeshifter. This is the archetype that gave birth to the myths of the vampire. A shapeshifter looks like us, maybe even better than us, but is secretly a monster. In The Wrestler, Randy the Ram meets a woman obsessed with firemen. He sleeps with her, slipping back into his selfish ways, oversleeps, and misses his daughter's birthday. Temptation pulls the hero off the path of righteousness momentarily. It is a moment when they come face to face with their weakness, like Jesus in the desert or the temptations of the Buddha. The temptation is a reminder of what the journey is all about. Our hero is off balance. They always have been, and the journey exists to change them. The Atonement of the Father.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and you will atone. Am I getting through to you, Mr. Beale?
See that look on Beale's face? That is the look of the hero when confronted with the ego-shattering revelation presented by the father. Similar to the mom, gender is all relative. We're not talking about a father per se, except when we are. We're talking father energy, and we're talking 1950s dad, the kind that beat you with a belt if you talked back, but only for your own good. During the Atonement of the Father, the hero meets a powerful figure who gives them an uncomfortable truth. Take, for instance, the Wizard of Oz. Goddess Glenda, the Good Witch, tells Dorothy all she has to do is get to the wizard and he will send you home. But when she arrives, the wizard tells her no, he will not help her unless she helps herself. This is a peek at what she needs to learn. She wants everything to come from outside of herself, somewhere over the rainbow. And in the end, she'll learn there's no place like home. She has everything she needs. The Godfather is indifferent. He is terrifying and cold. He tells her a truth she is not ready to understand. The father seems cruel, but he's only fulfilling his role. In the book, Campbell tells a story about an initiation ritual from a certain primitive tribe that hints at the meaning of the monomyth and clarifies the significance of the father. When the boys in the tribe turn 12 years old, the fathers come after the children with an axe and threaten to circumcise them. It is part of the ritual that the children will run into their mother's arms and cling to them for safety. I'd probably do the same if my dad was coming at me with an axe telling me he wanted to circumcise me. The father's job is to pry the boys from their mothers, take them to the rock, hold them down, and circumcise them. Campbell parallels this to the story of the Minotaur. Yep, that's what I said, the Minotaur. You probably know the story of the Minotaur, but what you might not know is the story of how the Minotaur was created. King Minos was given a beautiful white bull and told to sacrifice it to the god Poseidon. But Minos liked the bull. He thought it was too beautiful to kill and decided to keep it. He's king, he can do whatever he wants, right? Not a good idea. Poseidon got pissed. Never piss off an angry god. Instead of just killing Minos, he got angry the way only a god would. He asked Eros, the god of carnal love, to possess Minos' wife. She copulated with the bull, and 9 months later the Minotaur was born. Now every year, virgins are sent into the maze to be slaughtered by the Minotaur. That is, until Theseus shows up. How do these two stories connect? Well, Campbell tells us King Minos is a man who refused his circumcision and therefore will stay a child forever. He refused to do the painful thing he needed to do and kill the bull, and as a result, the people of Crete are subjected to the punishment meant for their infant king. Minos is like Norman Bates. paralyzed by never leaving the Bates Motel. He's an incel and an internet troll, a man who refuses to become an adult. Only through the gauntlet of initiation rituals are we transformed into adults. The act of the fathers ripping their sons away from their mothers turns the child's hatred inward toward the father, toward themselves. This is a good thing. Campbell cautioned that a society that does not learn to point the finger inward will resort to nationalism. The enemy is always outside, always someone else, always the other. But the enemy needs to be us. This is the only way we change. The transformational journey of the hero gives a map to overcoming ideas that stifle us and keep us from growing up. This is the purpose of the hero's journey. Just like the fathers in the tribe, they rip the child away from the safety of the mother to give them their necessary circumcision. The father figure may also be playing the part of the shadow. This is the archetype that represents the darkest parts of the hero. It may be the villain or another dark reflection of the hero. You probably heard this cliche 1,000 times in movies where the hero says, "You and I are nothing alike." But of course they are. This is because the villain is the hero's shadow, a personification of what's wrong with them. They can't see it yet, but they're deeply connected to this shadow. Part of becoming whole is entering into the shadow, entering into the opposite, and incorporating it into yourself. This is what defeating the villain is about. Stage 10, Apotheosis. According to Webster's dictionary, is the highest point in the development of something, the culmination or climax. This is the peak of the story, also the deification. In the stage known as the apotheosis, the protagonist dies. This is not really a literal death, although in many myths the hero literally dies, like the lost books of the Bible where Christ dies and goes to hell and meets Satan. This here is the death of the ego, the peak of the story, otherwise known as the all is lost moment. It gives us our rock bottom moment, which will force the hero to finally change and cause the catharsis to happen. Legend has it, the Freemasons back in the day had a ritual for their highest level Masons. They would kidnap them in the middle of the night, blindfold them, take them to an undisclosed location, and tell them they were going to die. They tell them they were going to cut out their eyes, their tongue. The next morning, when they awoke, still alive, they would be the highest level Mason. The apotheosis stage takes the hero to the lowest place. It is a rock bottom moment, and then rises them back up renewed. It is a miraculous resurrection. Neo dies and is reborn. Gandalf the Grey falls into the pit with a Balrog and is reborn Gandalf the White. The apotheosis may also be the moment where the character fails at the task. Ophelia is cast away by the faun and her mother dies in childbirth. Cobb fails to shoot Mel in the dream world. This failure necessitates that the hero transform to finally succeed. The hero fails. Only through the death of the ego can a person be transformed. Only by reaching rock bottom will a person change their life.
I must right these wrongs.
Only after death of the ego can you achieve the ultimate boon. Stage 11, the ultimate boon. The ultimate boon is the moment the hero achieves what they came for. Whether it is the Holy Grail or the Ark or the plans to the Death Star or the love you want, or you reach your destination, the ultimate boon represents the gaining of new knowledge that will free the hero of the lies that poison them. Having died and transformed, they are reborn. This new version of themselves, having come back from hell, has left part of themselves behind. This is the end of the trip begun in the belly of the whale stage. They are reborn now, but the forces of antagonism will not let them go so lightly. The boon is knowledge, but the hero may be tempted to keep that knowledge all to themselves. We've entered the final stage, Return, aka Act 3. Stage 12, the Refusal of the Return. Not all the stages are common, and let me remind you that you don't need all of them to make a story work. In fact, this is one you don't see a lot. But in the Refusal of the Return, the hero reaches a place of enlightenment and is tempted to stay within the new world, keeping their new knowledge to themselves. Cobb in Inception is tempted to stay in the dream world with the projection of his dead wife Mal, but he ultimately chooses reality. Pi, having found safety in the island full of meerkats, is tempted to stay in the new world, but realizes if he stays, the island will eat him. Campbell connects this idea to the Bodhisattva. When a person reaches enlightenment, they become one with everything. But a Bodhisattva is one who reaches enlightenment and comes back to Earth to help bring others along. The storyteller is a Bodhisattva, entering the realm of dreams and stories to find the truth within themselves. But they must bring the story back with them to complete the cycle. The story must be told. One who refuses the return keeps the story locked in a box, unpublished and unseen. Only by bringing the story back can the circle be closed and the journey completed. Stage 13, the Magic Flight. The hero, having died, reached the ultimate boon and transformed, must travel back to the village to deliver the Grail. But the forces of antagonism will not let them get away for long. Stage 14, Rescue from Without. In the Rescue from Without stage, an external force intervenes to save the protagonist from utter destruction. The hero cannot do it alone, and the forces of the universe are there to help, but ultimately the hero must strike the final blow. Luke Skywalker, pursued by TIE fighters in the trench, is about to be destroyed, until Han Solo returns with the Millennium Falcon and shoots Darth Vader in the ass. The Rescue from Without stage is the opposite of the Chosen One moment. It tells the hero they can't do this alone. It is part of the journey away from the ego and toward being one with all the world. Stage 15, Crossing the Return Threshold. Returning is as perilous as the journey itself, and one last symbol will tell us we've made our way to the end. There may be another of those pesky Threshold guardians as well, but when the hero completes the task, they will finally discard their old self and become master of two worlds. Cobb, upon returning to America, crosses the return threshold in the airport, where he waits to see whether or not he will be arrested or he will be allowed to pass through to see his children. Stage 16. When the hero completes this task, they will finally disregard their old self and become the master of two worlds. Stage 16, Master of Two Worlds. In the final moments of the story, the hero has shed the unnecessary baggage of the old world and learned to live both in the new world and the old. Neo can see the Matrix. Luke trusts the Force. Dorothy understands there is no place like home. Nina dances the Black Swan. The wrestler leaps from the top rung. The Master of Two Worlds stage shows our character in their final form. They have come to the understanding of what it is they need to know. This will allow them to succeed and heal the land and themselves. Stage 17, Freedom to Live. In Freedom to Live, we see the results of the hero's journey. This is otherwise known as the denouement, or the untying of knots. Think hobbits frolicking on the bed for 15 minutes. The purpose of a good denouement is not to show us how everyone made out after the story is done. The purpose is to show transformation. It is one last symbol to show who the hero has become as a result of the journey. The circle is closed. The hero finds themselves in the place where they began. They've brought the Grail back to the village. They've shared what they've learned. And here the purpose of story is revealed. The hero, having their world knocked off balance, went on a journey to right the world. And now, in the freedom of living in a world they helped to make right, they realize that the world before the story was sick, as they were sick. That in fact, the story happened to them, so they might find balance for the very first time. That is the 17 stages of the monomyth. And I'll leave you with one last thing. This is my favorite quote from Campbell. Furthermore, we have not even to risk the adventure alone, for the heroes of all time have gone before us. The Labyrinth is thoroughly known. We have only to follow the thread of the hero path. And where we had thought to find an abomination, we shall find a god. Where we had thought to slay another, we shall slay ourselves. Where we had thought to travel outward, we shall come to the center of our own existence. And where we had thought to be alone, we shall be with all the world. In the next video, we'll analyze how the hero's journey was used to create the Oscar-winning phenomenon Everything Everywhere All at Once.